Hey everyone, and welcome to the Building Geniuses podcast, where we talk to geniuses throughout the commercial real estate and building automation industries, asking them how they've gotten where they are, who's walked alongside them, and how they're helping others along the way. This is episode 5 of season 1, and I'm your host, Tim Vogel. In today's episode, we're speaking with Mike Conway of Stacks+Joules. Hey Mike, welcome to the Building Geniuses podcast.
Hey, Tim, sorry to cut in on you there. Really, just excited to be here. And wow, to be introduced as a building genius is a little uncomfortable.
That's right. Well, like it or not, you are a genius. So
Well, thank you very
I'm
much.
so glad that you're able to join us. I've heard a lot about Stacks+Joules and everything that you guys are doing. Steve Crow, who we've worked with lots of times, and he's very heavily involved, and he cannot say enough about what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit, first of all, just to get us started, what is Stacks+Joules, and what is your mission? What are your hopes, dreams, and goals?
Yeah, so Stacks+Joules. Stacks+Joules is a nonprofit technology workforce training program. And we're definitely focused on the building automation space. Our program has 3 components. We start off with lighting controls. We teach Python, really using Python, and really more to teach about programming logic and then start to get some of the controls logic, as well as some IT concepts. And that's a really fun introduction because one of the outcomes is a light show that's choreographed to whatever song they want, right? And so they're learning about timing, task tuning. We have some sensors that interact as well. So they're getting that basics in a fun and approachable way. And then we do HVAC fundamentals. So starting with heat transfer and refrigeration cycle and moving right up to the larger, more complex systems. And then cap it off with really with the system integration. And we, for our program, have used Niagara as kind of the training tool, but really from the general perspective of again, control logic, integration principles, and so using that specific tool to go general. And then the 4th component, which is just so important, is interwoven throughout, and that's professional skills. Which really applies to, I think, this conversation around mentoring and how you get to where you want to go.
That's right. And Mike, what's the average age of the person that goes through this program?
We really have two separate tracks, right? We actually started off with high school, and we're working with high school juniors and seniors. And one of the successes that we had there was that we work with schools, and part of our nonprofit mission is to really work with communities that haven't had access to technology training in general, and certainly not to something like building automation or automation skills, right? So we work with schools to target students who they identify as being unlikely to finish or complete a post-secondary program. And the success that we've been having, though, is that our graduates are electing to go on to post-secondary training programs, right? More advanced training. So they're getting that confidence. That gave us a little conundrum because we're talking with our industry partners, like Steve Crow, as you mentioned, we don't have the talent, right? They're deciding to go on to school. So we had it in our plans, but we moved it up even sooner to an adult cohort. So this is getting to your question of that. So our separate, really workforce placement program is our adult program, and that average age is like late 20s. Yeah, late 20s. They've been out working. It's amazing. I mean, we've done 2 of these cohorts. We have a 3rd that launches next week on the 18th. And the characters that we see, well, I mean, I am of the Sesame Street generation, so it dates me, but it's like the people in your neighborhood, that little Sesame Street skit, right? So we're working with people who are like hosing out trains, right? They work for the MTA, and their job is to like go into a nasty train at the end of the day and literally hose it out. Or they're working in a hotel, like cleaning hotel rooms, and or they're working as a cashier at Walgreens, right? So, and they've been doing it. This is the significance of late 20s. They've been doing this since they graduated from high school. Many are supporting a family, whether that's an extended family of brothers and sisters and parents, or their own families with their own kids, and it's a struggle, right? And they're really like they've got this drive now, having been in the struggle, having they are hungry for that advancement, and so they come to us through our partnership with other organizations, and and they're getting so that's where we're getting them straight into jobs, and we've got like a growing list of companies that are recognizing this talent pool and investing in them and hiring them, and it's just really awesome.
Well, yeah, because you've equipped them, but now you've also encouraged them and empowered them and given these resources to go and now apply it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
those are just so many people just need that kind of hand up to help them take those next steps, and that's really what you guys are dedicated to, right?
absolutely. Yeah. I think it's well, it's we made a conscious decision. Myself and my co-founder John Spooner, we made a conscious decision to go nonprofit, right? And we considered both. And the thing with a nonprofit is that it's focused on mission, right? And that's not to say that a for-profit doesn't have a mission, and we're definitely like not anti-profit, right? We're working to to connect our talent with the for-profit businesses that have incredible opportunities, right? But in being that we're mission driven, it is it keeps us grounded in an approach, right, where we are committed through that mission to seek out the really communities and individuals that have been overlooked, right? So their talent is there, right? They're coming with talent. They're intelligent. They're hardworking. They have often not had the opportunities to flex that talent. And that's what's so exciting about this industry is it gives like these opportunities because it's technical, because it's rapidly evolving, because it's in that, it's automation, it's artificial intelligence, it's IT, it's cybersecurity, all of these things that have opportunity behind it, and so they step up into those complex challenges and start to really feel themselves, right? It's something that they can be proud of, and they start going after that experience of being proud. I'd say we interviewed we post interview all our students, and one that was just hired by Climatech, our first hire with Climatech, incredible guy, and he said, like, we were like, okay, the thing that he thanked us for, right? He said, thank you for making my family and my girlfriend proud of me. So he has to have the technical grounding, right? So that we focus on that. We've worked with our industry partners to really dial that in, to really target so the important technical learning. There's this other aspect that when I say professional skills or the disposition, right? That drive to continuously improve, being aware of what it takes to learn something technical, being aware of when to ask so that you don't royally screw something up, right? You're not trying to hide that you don't know something.
None of us have ever done that before. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like all of those lessons are really, if you're, for us this is getting back to our mission, right? If we're not strategically designing our program around those levels of learning, then we're not serving either our clients, either of our clients, which are, those that we're training, and also the companies and industry partners that are so crucial to having the opportunities.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's start with you, your co-founder. That's kind of largely your organization at this point. Is that
Yep,
correct?
three of us, but
Yep.
now three of us. Yep.
Sure. So, what are some of the values that you guys have for yourselves or your organization? And then how are you passing those on to these people going through the cohorts?
Yeah, so I mean, it's so appropriate to the title of this podcast, right? Building genius. We talk about it's so a core value, right, is really honoring and assuming genius in all of those that we serve, right? We're working in communities like the Lower East Side in New York, right? And um, so I can describe it that value like this: you're walking down the Lower East Side, Avenue D, or wherever it is that you are, right? And you see you start to see genius in the swagger of someone on the street corner, in how they're dressed, right? The style that they present. Sometimes it's in, like, they're on the corner and it's a group of young people and they're kind of roasting each other, and you can hear like the creativity and the intelligence in how they're addressing each other. It that's the value, right? And it is, and it's there. So approaching it with that assumption, right? And so part of how we actualize that is we don't have barriers, right? We don't have entrance exams. We don't have prerequisites. We have an interview process, and we're going through that right now. We enter, and what we're looking for is really is commitment. Can you commit? And it's a big commitment. It's like 5:30 to 9:30 for 12 weeks, and it's not paid, right? We don't charge, but we don't pay. It's they're buying in, and um, and so by setting it up that way, and getting this mix of the people from the neighborhood, um, we start to see that genius emerge. Now we do it also strategically. So when you say, like, how do we move that forward? So one thing is, our first hire, Francisca Peral, is a graduate of our all girls high school program that we do in collaboration with the Lower East Side Girls Club. Um, and we saw her excellence in class. She didn't start off that way. She was timid. She didn't think she was into it. She didn't expect to, like, become a building nerd, but she thrived, right? And so um, it's so here she is as this example of that genius, right? And now she has actually taught some of our industry partners. She has taught them the, like, Niagara basics, right? So here's someone who graduated high school at 20 years old, who didn't have any of those prerequisites or backgrounds, but just had so much going for her that when she had the opportunity and she came through our program and it started to step up, and now it's like she's raised up to, like, a high level. And I think that's that's how we demonstrate. And the other way is, like, our measure is getting them into jobs, right? And that's not, we're not we have to be very, like, honest and upfront about who the talent is, what they're coming with, and that it's going to take some development from our partners to get them up to where they're independently out there in the field.
So you're taking you're taking people that are perhaps less privileged with less opportunity. You're giving them the knowledge and the skill set. Then you're giving them the opportunity. I mean, you're really changing lives. You're changing livelihoods, contributing to families, and that's absolutely amazing. And I love this idea of honoring and assuming genius. I'm sure you're familiar with the study. I wish I could quote it again. It's now a habit of bringing up things that we have no citations for, but it's a study of, it was two kind of same children classrooms or group of students, right? You had the control that was assumed that they were difficult kids, and you had the ones that were assumed or told, or at least told the teacher that they were gifted children, and the gifted children did well, and the ones that were problems did worse. And it all came down to what was the assumption of the people that you were teaching. And it's just assuming the genius and assuming the capability in people first and foremost is so incredible, and it's very powerful, both from your standpoint but also for them, because now they feel heard and they feel understood, and they feel like they have value, and then instilling in them kind of that the requirement for commitment. Just showing up, right, is half the job. Just showing up, and once you do that, then you get fed and you get invested in, and that's so terribly important. Why do you assume genius in people?
Ooh, you're going deep. Yeah, I guess this comes from like, where do I come from? So I'm the fifth of eight, so big Irish Catholic family, right? And I'm there in the middle. I have four older brothers, two younger sisters, and a younger brother. And not all of my older siblings had a straight and direct path to success. And so I saw that, and I love my family. I love my brothers and sisters, right? And what I saw, like looking back, was that parents never give up. Great parents never give up, and it was like having that to fall back on, and the resources just never stop coming. So, and I felt it myself. Whose path is straight? I mean, mine's been pretty straight. I think because I'm in the middle, and I had support from my older brothers and parents and the whole family and all that. But yeah, so when I think about that, I think about the values that's where it comes from, right? I mean, my parents didn't look at one of my older siblings who's having some real tough times, and not being easy to work with and all that. And there was never they assumed, right, that it's going to work out. And so and it's not just my parents, my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, and so it came from there. And then I felt it from my older brothers, right, who were reaching back, and as much as pounding on me on a rainy day, they were also ushering me along
Yeah.
through life.
Well, and how rewarding it is when we have the opportunity to extend that hand and to help people, whether they're close to us or someone we just met looking for a new life. So how did you personally get into the building automation space? How long ago was that? How did it all start?
Yeah, so it is a mix. I should say that my co-founder John, we met in second grade. So in Mrs. Davidson's second grade classroom, right?
That's where it all started.
Stayed really good friends. Yeah, he's an only child, so I like to be over there and like have unbroken toys, and then he liked to be over at my house for the chaos and just never-ending fun. So it mixed, and then it stayed that way, right, throughout our lives. And I went the education route. So I went into teaching, taught high school math for over 20 years, started leading schools, started working with schools on connected learning. Just saw that as a really powerful method for teaching, is project-based learning and also career-connected learning. And he went the technology route. So he did a couple of like startups in the 90s, and then worked for Alphabet on their smart cities initiative. So he's always hooked in to the latest of what was going on and what the needs were. And then one of my older brothers is an engineer in the building space, and worked in building operations and in this area up in Boston. So it was really from me developing projects from my classrooms and then working with teachers to help them develop projects and coming in with context and looking for engaging but also really valuable context that would set students up for like entry into promising futures. And when you're doing that, I think one of the things with education that needs to get caught up is that it's often either behind, I think too often, like what they're teaching is technology from the past, or it's current. And that's not the economy we're in right now, right? I mean, you cannot be working with what's current because it's going to change. You need to be ready. So education now is really about how do you learn and stay on top of new, ever more complex and ever changing, technologies and applications.
Yeah. Well, I remember that, in college going through marketing, marketing is so technology driven. Um, we would be working from textbooks in some cases that were 5 to 10 years old. And it's like, yes, these principles are good and you need to learn the principles, but it also comes down to tactics and tools. And I had just recently had dinner with a college professor of mine. And I asked him, I said, how are you keeping up with all the technology changes? And he said, two primary ways. One is we listen to the students and how they're using things like social media, but then also a lot of case study work and contextual project-based, or what did you call it? Project-based learning. So they'll bring someone in from a local company and say, this is what we're wanting to use as a tool. Help us figure out what our strategies should be. So you learn from those basic core fundamentals that honestly have not changed. But then you get opportunities to use those tools to build a strategy, to build a marketing plan, a business plan, whatever it is. So the contextualizing, particularly of something like math, that is huge.
Yeah. And then in technology. And that's part of our approach, a very strategic part of our approach with Stacks and Joules, both to prepare for the workforce, but also to get our learners into the right mindset for success. And so that strategy is to start with the most current and sometimes the most complex, right? That's why we lead up to system integration, right? Typically, you're in the industry 5 years before you start interacting with something like KMC Commander or Niagara or one of these platforms, and yet first off, in this industry, I think the usual sort of path has been like, oh, you got to like hit those basics first, and sometimes those basics mean like take apart a pump and put it back together, which are important. I'm not pushing those off to the side. But I'm saying like we have to be strategic about being effective, and we have not been effective in creating the workforce for this industry, and more largely for our nation, for the automation industry, for this technology age that we're in right now, right? So it's not a like how it should be or what we want or whatever. It's like we got our measure needs to be, are we getting the workers to be able to do the work, right? And so one of the things is you cannot tell a young person these days that you need to start with mechanical. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's not a smart. They know it's not a smart place to start, right? It's not the start. It's that they know it's not going to be a stable place to be. It's got to be technology. I mean, that's the age we're in. So you got to hit technology, and then we use technology to backfill on those other mechanical skills and knowledge of systems and knowledge of, even the particulars of the physical systems.
Mike, why do you think people wait so long to introduce technology?
Well, I think it's how we've gotten here, right? I mean, it was largely a mechanical process, and then the technologies have been applied, and so it took these geniuses who were in there, like doing the new application and the test studies and all of that. And so that was naturally how it developed. I think we're now at this switch over, right, to where they're becoming the processes are becoming digital. And I think, as you described with your professor who said, like, bring in companies, and the companies are coming in for an exchange, right? They've got a technology and they want to test it out. And it's even valuable for them to test it out with non-experts, because that's who the workforce is going to be. And I think we need more of that in this industry. And that's, you referenced Steve Crow from Resolute Building Intelligence and the project, a huge champion of ours, great mentor of mine. And, the project that we're doing with them, it's just awesome. We're already working with Chicago public schools, and doing fault detection and diagnostics, and so we had linked up with Steve over time and developed a relationship, and so then he started working with one of our high school classes, and so we're teaching them on the Resolute platform, their Fusion platform, right? So how to use it, what the menus are, and all that. The context that we dive right into is data from a couple of Chicago public school buildings. And so we're using that very real experience. Now, Steve is there, and in the first interactions with our students, man, he was all over the place, clicking screens and dropping this. Oh, no, here's another cool thing you can see. And oh, look at this. Oh, it was,
Yeah,
kids were getting
that's a good
turned off,
impression.
right?
Yeah.
So you get this exchange going where he has the building knowledge and the knowledge of that technology, and he's also has a lived experience that matches a lot of where our students are coming from. So that's what he's bringing. We're bringing knowledge of education. What does it take? How do you design activities? How do you approach the process in order to both engage and then support this advanced learning? So we're able to, instead of having it just be a one-way share of this industry expert to this group, it becomes really a three-way share of Resolute with Steve and Scott, our team with myself and John and Fran, and then this classroom of students as we start to work out an approach that keeps them engaged, but also teaches them some very fundamental topics, right? We used that. So they're using that technology, but what we really taught about was one, the components of an air handling system. I mean, just basic. Well, let's go to engineering mindset, because you're looking at data and it's saying it's a percent open of a damper. What does that mean? Okay, let's dig into what that is and why it's important and why that is. And then the other just basic key concepts are set points, right? What's the difference between having one or a dual set point? And you can see the screw ups where they're taking their heating set point, and it's obviously a technician didn't realize there was a heating and a cooling set point, and they're getting mixed, and then also some basic ASHRAE standards around set points. And so what's the occupied deadband? What's an unoccupied deadband? Scheduling, and what's the effect of scheduling, right?
Which then opens up a whole world of standards. And, there are things that to do the right way, things to do the wrong way. These are baseline must-haves. How could we improve upon that? All that's good. What got you into teaching? Let me ask you that. Why
Well,
teaching?
mentors, definitely mentors. Yeah, I mean, my godmother, my aunt Maybeth, educator, career educator. My uncle Bob and Aunt Judy, who are not related by blood, but that kind of aunt and uncle. Yeah, so I had strong mentors who and coming out of college, I'd studied math. My father was like, okay, you can take this nifty philosophy major that you're into only if you also do like a math or another technical major along with it. And I'm so there's mentoring right there, right? He wanted to make sure I had some like hard skills as well. So yeah, so I came out of college and was kind of, like I tried a couple things. I worked with a software company. I did sales for another company, and it just didn't have the drive that I was looking for. And so I went back with my mentors and started to follow that path.
Well, and that's what a great foundation to have, though, to go into an organization like you're working with now, or that you're founding now, because being able to understand teaching, having done it for so long, understand the fundamentals, and like you said, building what is a proper exercise that's really going to convey the 3 4 5 topics that we want to make sure they walk away with today. Because yeah, we can go do PowerPoints all day long and everyone will forget 95% of what they've learned. But if you put it in their hands, show them real data, that's extremely helpful. How would you consult, let's say, a system integrator to say, hey, you want to develop a training program for anyone that you onboard? So you have a new tech. What are some things that you would tell them that would be helpful for them in how to build that kind of onboarding program?
So first, I would say, okay, one thing is we really need to distinguish and have a dual focus, right? There's the technical, and then there's the professional, what I call professional skills. And too often the focus is only the technical. You need to be able to do and know these things, and it leaves out, right? And also, and it starts to bleed together because, and this gets back to our mission, right? Working with those who haven't had this type of opportunity or this type of training before. We'll often use sort of professional skill building activities as a support for learning the technical. So they start to build on each other, right? So I say, okay, let's identify those two, and then and this is what we did with our curriculum. What we constantly do with our curriculum is we say, okay, let's break this down to competencies, right? Like let's go through what do you want this person to do, and let's get it all out there, and then let's start to remix, right? And this has come where we're having success with companies hiring our talent. It's been this very process, right? Because they're putting out for job postings, and we all know what they say, right? They say 3 to 5 years of experience. They can work on 3 to 5 different platforms. And they're unicorns. They don't exist. You cannot hire them. It's just going to sit out there, right? Or you're going to have to like try to poach somebody for really expensive, which doesn't work in New York City because you're not getting someone to move to New York City, both because of expense and lifestyle. It's a very, so that's the start. It's like, okay, you're not going to hire that person, right? So we need to like look at who can you hire? So let's focus in. And what we bring is identifying valuable skills, immediately valuable and needed skills that we know we can train to. It's not going to be the full range, right? You're not going to get that 3 to 5 years of experience within 180 hours of training. But we're going to really target working with our industry partners some key fundamental technical skills and understanding. And at the same time, then we're going to have the same conversation around professional competencies, and 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 then start to target those specific skills and behaviors.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because I think ride-alongs, what there's a guy on our team always calls it bucket time, right? You know, you're sitting down, you're in the mechanical room, you're learning hands-on. That's, I think, what a lot of training consists of. Some of the better partners do have more kind of professional skills training. What are some of those professional skills that you try to instill in your students, and that you would encourage other system integrators to also instill for the new employees they're onboarding?
Yeah. So one is, and this refers to bucket time, right? And it comes from a story of actually came from two of our graduates who are hired by company Tech Systems. These two graduates actually came to us. They already had the networking certifications, and so, but they weren't employed. So they got our training. We got them into Tech Systems. One of the things that they said was, like, they're going into buildings, often secured buildings, and they could get trapped on that bucket while like a 3-hour process is going on that they don't touch, right? They need to be aware of it and monitor, but it's just like an upload or a system update or something like that. But they can't leave because the door will lock behind them and they'll be trapped, and they can't go do something else because they it's not on the ticket or whatever. So they said they realized, and this is something that we train, right? When they come in, we host our workshops with partners, with community partners that have like facilities, right? We make sure that they are introducing themselves to the person at the front door, that they know their name, that they have a little like conversation with them, with the janitor who's there late because our programs run late, that they know their name, that they thank them for the extra time that they're putting in. We have, and I put this out, an invitation to yourself and to others who are listening. It's key that we have industry partners visiting, both to learn and get exposure to the industry, but also because we will go to your LinkedIn once it's set up, right? And we'll bring them to show them, like, what do you do before you meet somebody? You do some research. You go to their company. You look at the projects that company has posted. You go to YouTube and you see what information's there. So all of that process is wrapped in. And having done that, I sort of lost track of what the question was. So.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, it was, what are those soft skills that you teach to your students, and some of the things that system integrator partners, mechanical contractors, controls contractors, that they should be, also instilling in their teams. I could remember I used to work for a financial institution, and they would there were some financial institutions that would send their tellers and their bank member representatives or whatever it was to Ritz-Carlton training, which was largely like, how do you just serve people? And a lot of those soft skills are extremely valuable. And how do you have personality? How do you represent a company well? How do you, you said, say thank you, have those little conversations, make it known who you are in a clear and personable way. What are some ways that you teach that? I mean, are those, I guess, more tangibly, are those just presentations you give, examples you give, or are you weaving those in through the projects?
It's woven right in, right? So on the first day, we're not waiting for the classroom to fill up. We're at the door, shaking their hand, saying hello, right? Every single day. That's where we are. That's the training that I give to Fran. We're about to hire another, and that's the experience that they'll get, right? So it's modeling. You start with modeling, and then you make it conscious, right? So they become like aware of what you modeled, and it was purposefully modeled, and you give it purpose, and then you reflect. So you have them do it and come back and you reflect on what the experience was like, what they think they did well, and what they would do different next time. And then you just repeat. You keep doing it. You have more and more people coming in, whether it's virtually, in person. They follow, it's a standard process. Yeah, I think I described how we do it with the people at the front desk, right? And there's very real, and then we have our graduates come in and talk about like, oh my God, I got trapped in a closet. And then I realized like, oh, I knew the name of the person who has to let me in, and I actually had their phone number and I texted them and I was able to, right? That's the reality, like why it's so important to do this stuff, right?
Which is also helpful. This happened to me recently where needed to use the restroom and they're like, yeah, it's down the hall and to the left, and you get there and the door's locked and you're like, okay, so I need to go back and but it's little,
That
little
door's
things
locked.
like that.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, everything is locked. Everything is locked. And just being able to go and kind of humbly and vulnerably present yourself in whatever situation. Again, it's those soft skills, and it's you develop trust.
That's such a basic example, like no being able to get in and out and have that, right? But where it leads to is that example that I used of like knowing when to ask. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one, right? I mean, think about your own professional career, and if you ask too much, you're a liability, right? You're not functioning independently. But boy, if you don't ask when it's needed, you can just so royally screw things up. And that, again, is another one that just it has to come from modeling and practice. And so in the classroom, this is also why we start with the lighting, the kit that we use. It's really wonky and purposefully so, right? It loses its connection to the hub. It constantly it gets overloaded with the number of lights that you're attaching to it. There's no end to the issues, and we want it that way because it forces us in. It creates this opportunity to practice how to resource. What did you try yourself, right? Because there's some simple things that if by the third day, if you haven't tried that, come on, man, reconnect. Are you connected to the station?
Yeah. Turn
Okay,
it off
well,
and back on.
turn it off. Yeah, like these. What have you tried? And if you haven't tried that by the third day, then like don't call me over. There's other people with real problems, right? So that's real. That's real talk. And then it goes to like, oh, who else have you asked before you asked me? Did you ask anyone else around you? Oh, you did. What did they ask you? And now you're getting also like you're layering on because now you're getting to communication, right? This is another like key skill of the technician. Technicians are going to have to be on the phone getting directions. They will never be at the point because technology is changing. You go into a building and who knows what's in there, right? You cannot be an expert in every single product and application out there. So you're going to have to be on the phone. You're going to have to be able to explain what the issue is, what you've done in clear and understandable way, and then you're going to have to take directions, right? So this setup also gets them engaged in that process. And it's why when we have visitors, we kind of have stages to it, right? And so if it's the first time a new person for us is visiting, it'll be a light like, hey, who are you? What's your career? What do you have to tell us? But as we get deeper, like the work we did with Steve and with others, many others, we want it to be a technical aspect. And well, first off, we start in any visit, we have our students present so that it changes that relationship to an exchange rather than just an input, right? So, and we want our industry partners to see and vet the results of our training. We're not trying to hide it. We want to broadcast it and we want feedback. So we start with the students presenting, and then ideally we want like a presentation on some sort of focused technical concept. Because again, it's that communication. And we want you or other industry partners to experience the ability of our students to learn something difficult. That's what they're being hired for.
I love this idea of modeling it, making it known, reflecting it, because by going through a program like this, you're also teaching them how they can take that same mindset. And once they have that 3-5 years experience, or they're 10 years down the road and that new person comes in, now they're able to say, hey, I remember what I did at Stacks+Joules. I'm going to do a similar kind of approach, as because now I'm in charge of training this person. They're going to follow me for the next 8 weeks. They're going to follow me for the next 6 months, whatever that is. But now they have the tools and being able to share that. So you're teaching future teachers. And I love the intentionality of that. And I think that's something that our partners and others in the industry can model, whether it's a technical job, a sales job, an operational job, whatever it is, from a technology solution provider like KMC, or someone that's boots on the ground making it happen, or even a building engineer at a school district. Those are all things. How do we pass on this knowledge in a way that is coherent and replicable?
Yeah, yeah. And it just made me think as you were saying that is like, yes, there's I mean, that's the modern workforce. You've got to be prepared for that. That is workforce training, right? That's what's needed by companies in order to thrive. And there's also a technical aspect, right? Because we really see ourselves as like sort of retooling the entry level worker, right? To say like digital first, data first approaches, right? Don't be thinking mechanical first. You're going to go down rat holes. And that's why these buildings get so out of whack, right? If you go mechanical first and you're like, oh, well, I think it's this, and so let me go like take that apart or take it out or rearrange it or redo the set, whatever it is, that's why these buildings get out of whack. Whereas if you go like a digital first, a data first mindset that uses like the fault detection. I mean, cars have been doing this for a long time now, right? You take a car to the shop, the first thing they do is plug it in and get a diagnostic. It doesn't tell you exactly what the problem is, but it tells you if it's like an oxygen mixture. And then you got to be like, well, is it just the sensor? Is it actually the mechanism? And you start planning, but at least it gets you in that area, and you don't just like end up with a new alternator, but the problem's still
right. Your back tire's still flat.
$100 bill, and you're like, what the hell? It's still not.
Yeah, but I have a new alternator. That's cool.
Hey, yeah.
Hey, Mike, what is your hope for Stacks+Joules in the next 10 years?
Oh man, in the next 10 years, this year is really about our organizational development towards expansion. And we're approaching this with the same level of like strategic thinking, getting our mentors in line to help us develop this. Because within 10 years, we want to be, in cities across our nation. There is so much talent out there. I mean, it is the bedrock of what makes us as a nation incredible, right? It is being able to take advantage of the talent that that exists, right? So we want to be there and really be in these communities, like have programs running and providing talent in these communities, and then within 10 years. I want to be in other countries too, because there's talent worldwide, and I think that there's opportunities, and this is where the world is going. And the more that we can pull in diverse, new, like people with very different lived experience, and this goes right to again. I mean, I'm talking a lot about the Resolute, but it's other companies. This is why Tech Systems is bringing in and hiring. Now they've hired 6 of our graduates over a course of time. And what they see is like it's that opportunity to mold, right? It's that they're coming in because they're coming in with different lived experiences and perspectives. They have a new take, whether it's a digital native approach, and so it's just an expectation that they're going to start with technology, or it's a interpersonal, right? That they've got a different interpersonal skill, and they're better able to communicate with the people in the building and the neighborhoods that you're sending them into. So it's just like these huge pluses, and that's the opportunity that we have in the next 10 years is to really do it. I'll say one more thing. There is like there's a lot of room here, and this is just coming back to our mission, right? Like we are mission driven to be working with communities that haven't had the access and the opportunity, and there's many other organizations. We're working with some community colleges. I know, I got great respect for Smart Buildings Academy, and each of these pieces is positioned, to really work with different constituencies, and there's enough opportunity and enough need for all of us to be working together, and so in the next 10 years, our focus is on that mission of going into communities that haven't had.
Well, Mike, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I love your mission. I love your heart. I love your approach. I love so much that you see that inherent value in all people, and that you're honoring and assuming that genius in each of them, that you're partnering the way you are, that you guys are a nonprofit. I just want to say thank you. It's such an honor just to even know you and have this conversation. And I look forward to seeing that next 5 to 10 years as Stacks+Joules begins to grow and spread that message.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk and reflect. It's definitely that being that middle child, this is how I develop, is communicating and connecting, and also to say that it was several years ago now that I came across a YouTube video about a project that KMC did with a school.
Yep, Stewart Country Day School.
Stewart Country Day School, and that really it told me I was on the right path, right? Because we do I'll say that when we're talking with some school systems or building owners, they're like, allow the data kids access to what? No. How could they do that, right? And having these other examples, whether it's that example there, such a respected company, KMC, to show like, look, now that's a very privileged community, right? And I also use that because I'm able to say to our funders, we're a nonprofit and we're raising those funds, and I should say Resolute Building Intelligence does contribute to our mission, is that let's look at that class size, right? Let's watch and let's see the class size, and let's see what type of families they're coming from and what other opportunities and experiences they probably had, that because of our mission, we're looking to provide the same level of resourcing and experience to the communities that we serve.
Well, thank you, Mike. So that wraps this episode of the Building Geniuses podcast, a production of KMC Controls. If you've enjoyed this conversation, we encourage you to subscribe and share. And if there's anyone you know who should be on our podcast, tag them in the comments or reach out to us on social. As always, we appreciate you listening. And until next time, learn something new, teach someone something, and build your inner genius.